All right, so we're diving into something pretty wild today. We're going to be looking at how a single event can completely shake up an entire genre, like literally change the game overnight.
Yeah, and this isn't just, some slow evolution of sound or style. This is like a sudden earthquake. And what's crazy is that it all started with a single guest verse.
And think about that, one verse. We're talking about hip hop, right?
Exactly, hip-hop is genre built on, battles and rivalries and constant one-upmanship. And yet it's this one verse that really throws everything into chaos.
So where do we even begin with this? What's the ground zero of this seismic event?
Well, it all goes back to Kendrick Lamar, specifically his verse on Like That, the track from Future and Metro Boomin's album. Remember that?
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, Future and Metro Boomin, that was a huge release. Everyone was hyped for that collab. We Don't Trust You had just dropped, and the whole vibe was super dark, almost menacing.
Right. And then boom, track number 5 hits, and it's like that. But Metro doesn't just drop Kendrick into any old beat. He crafts this incredible sonic landscape.
Oh yeah, the production on that track is insane. It's like those laser-like horns, super frantic, really sharp. And then he throws in those samples, Eazy-E, Rodney-O, and Joe Cooley. Like he's pulling from hip-hop history,
Yeah, and it's not just a history lesson. He weaves it all together with these sinister, brooding keys. It sets up this really dramatic backdrop for what Kendrick's about to do.
And the placement of the verse. 5 songs in, you're not expecting it. It's not like he's the lead artist or anything. He just shows up and the whole energy changes instantly.
You could just feel it, right? And then that opening line hits, these niggas talking out of their necks. It's aggressive, it's confrontational.
It's not the Kendrick we're used to, right? Like he can be super cerebral, really intricate with his wordplay, but this is just straight up in your face.
Exactly, it was a shot fired. And even though there were those references to Drake and the first-person shooter thing with J. Cole, it felt like something bigger was happening.
Oh, yeah. Especially that line about snatching chains and burning tattoos. It felt like he was drawing a line in the sand, This wasn't playful anymore. This was serious.
And the fallout from that line, from that verse, has been incredible. Like, we're talking about broken friendships, a power shift in the entire genre, a whole recoronation.
All from a guest verse. It's kind of mind-blowing, really.
It's a testament to how much weight words can carry, how a single artistic statement can, disrupt an entire system.
So let's break this down. First, the whole thing with the alliance is falling apart. It's crazy to think about how many people were seemingly in Drake's camp before this.
Right. Future, 21 Savage, Rick Ross. Even going back further, you had The Weeknd,
Yeah.
AP Rocky. Drake was like the center of this whole network.
But that seems to have exposed some cracks in that foundation, right? Like suddenly everyone's distances themselves, especially Rick Ross, who had all those collabs with Drake. It's like he was waiting for a reason to turn on him.
What do you think was behind that shift? Was it just opportunity, or was there something more personal going on?
Well, some of the sources point to those personal relationships. Like with AP Rocky, it's hard to ignore the Rihanna connection. Drake's history with her, and now Rocky's with her. It adds a whole other layer to the situation.
Yeah, it shows how those personal dynamics can bleed into the professional side of things. It's not just music, it's egos, it's history, it's all intertwined.
And the fact that so many artists who were close to Drake didn't come to his defense, that speaks volumes, doesn't it? Like maybe that network wasn't as strong as everyone thought.
Right. It's almost like Kendrick's verse forced everyone to pick a side, and the silence from some of those big names was deafening.
Which brings us to the idea of Drake's, perceived downfall. I mean, he's been through beefs before, Pusha T, the whole ghostwriting thing with Meek Mill. But this feels different, doesn't it? This feels like it's had a lasting impact.
Absolutely. And some people even suggest that Kendrick was playing chess. Like he anticipated Drake's responses, almost had a trap with that verse.
So you're saying Drake walked right into it?
Well, the way Drake reacted, the diss tracks, the legal stuff, it kind of kept the spotlight on Kendrick's narrative, even if it wasn't intentional.
And then you have the whole optics of it all. Kendrick wins multiple Grammys for Not Like Us, performs it at the Super Bowl. Huge moments, right? And Drake's overseas, touring, not really engaging in the same way. It created this narrative of one artist rising while the other was fading away.
And the music itself. Drake's diss tracks, they made some noise, but they didn't stick around. And his album after that, Home Tixie Dong's For You, it underperformed compared to his previous work.
Especially when you compare it to Kendrick. Luther was released way after Like That, and it was still charting months later. It's a clear sign of a shift in, public perception, commercial success.
It's like the tide turned. Drake had this untouchable aura for so long, But suddenly, the ground was shifting beneath him, and Kendrick, who was already a legend, reached a whole new level of mainstream recognition.
And then you have Kanye trying to jump into the mix. Classic Kanye, always wanting to be part of the big moment.
But his remix of Like That, it was like a total flop. Nobody cared.
Yeah, it's wild. But the reaction was basically a collective shrug. And to be honest, the remix itself wasn't that great. Some of the lyrics, the whole vibe, it just didn't land.
And with all the controversy surrounding Kanye at that time, it really felt like he was losing his grip on the hip-hop world. Like he was trying to be relevant to a conversation that had already moved on.
It's almost symbolic, isn't it? Like hip-hop had entered this new era defined by Kendrick and Drake, and Kanye was stuck in the past.
Exactly. The focus had shifted, and Kanye couldn't redirect it.
But it wasn't just about Drake and Kendrick. Like, that seems to have reignited this whole competitive spirit in hip-hop. It reminds me of Kendrick's Control verse, That was like a challenge to his entire generation.
Oh yeah, definitely a parallel there. Control was like a shot across the bow, pushing everyone to step up their game. And while, that was more targeted, it had a similar effect. The stakes were raised.
You could see it in Drake's responses. Even though he might not have come out on top, he was putting more lyrical effort in.
And then you have J. Cole. After the whole 7-minute drill thing and the apology, he came back with tracks like Clouds. It felt like he was refocusing, getting back to that raw lyricism.
And even someone like Joey Badal, he became more assertive, started throwing his own jabs. It's like everyone felt the pressure to elevate their game.
That fight night edge, it was back. Lyrical skill was suddenly at the forefront again.
So let's recap. One guest verse changed everything. It fractured friendships, potentially brought down a titan, propelled Kendrick to new heights, exposed Kanye's waning influence, and reignited a lyrical arms race across hip-hop. It's insane.
It really shows how powerful art can be, how it can tap into these cultural currents, personal histories, and power dynamics. It's not just music, it's a reflection of something much bigger.
And it makes you wonder, right? What other seemingly small moments are happening right now that could have this kind of impact? What's flying under the radar that could reshape everything in the future? It's a really interesting thing to think about.
Definitely makes you pay attention to the details, doesn't it? Because you never know where the next earthquake might come from.
Absolutely. All right, well, that's our deep dive for today. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep your ears open. You never know what might change the world.
Yeah, stay tuned.